who's our Executive Vice President of Business Development and Delivery. If you have questions today, please put them in the chat, raise your hand, or you can always email us at youalreadyownit@go-planet.com. Also, show some reactions today or emoticons if you hear something you like, or contact the account team directly at the email address on the screen. Lastly, we record all these sessions, so feel free to share them with your colleagues. With that said, just a quick warning that we are now being recorded. Welcome. Today we'll be talking about making the move to Intune. As more organizations embrace cloud-first technologies, the need to modernize endpoint management is becoming increasingly urgent. Legacy tools like GPOs and SCCM can slow down progress and complicate hybrid work environments. In today's session, we'll help you understand what it takes to move to Microsoft Intune and why now is the right time to make this shift. This session will provide practical guidance and expert insights to help you evaluate your current setup and plan your move to Intune with confidence. With me today is Stefan Torres. Stefan is a senior endpoint consultant with Planet Technologies. He's been with a Microsoft specialist since his career began at Liberty University in 2012. Since then, he has provided expertise for the DoD and Fortune 500 companies, as well as a wide variety of other organizations. Stefan has a passion for problem solving and a knack for transforming complex challenges into streamlined solutions, and he thrives in using innovation and leveraging technology to drive continuous improvement. Also with me today is Mario Brandon. Mario is new to the Planet team, joining us as a new cloud strategist, but certainly not new to technology, as he has over 25 years delivering IT solutions to our nation's defense, state, and partner organizations. He has also been with Microsoft for 13 years. Mario is going to help us answer questions in the chat window, so as they come up, he will try to do his best to answer them. So get your questions ready. We'd love to answer them. Or we're also going to have a question time as well throughout the program at the end. Welcome, guys. For more information about today's program, make sure you check out our blog on this topic that was posted this week. We also include some useful links at the end of the presentation based on some of the questions we received in advance, and we'll definitely get to those questions in a little bit. So let's get started. As always, here's our agenda. Our agenda covers 4 topics that are crucial for the successful move to Intune: hybrid solutions. We'll explore the benefits and implementation of hybrid solutions for cloud connectivity, and then we'll see a short demo. Addressing legacy GPOs, we'll discuss strategies for managing and modernizing legacy GPO objects. Demo, and then we'll get into a demo of that as well. And then finally, we're going to set up Autopilot, why you do it. We'll explain the benefits of using Autopilot for device setup and configuration, and you'll see a short demo of that. And then finally, moving to Microsoft Intune and why, we'll talk about why you should do this. We'll provide some guide on transitioning to Intune and the advantages of it offers. Then we'll conclude with the compelling reasons to make the move to Intune and how it can benefit your organization. And of course, we'll save plenty of time for questions. We really want to hear about your experiences with these products and share what you have learned as well. So please let us know. Our first poll question is here. We'd love to know, are you using Intune? Where you're at in your journey? So if you could quickly, this is a anonymous poll. Please go ahead and answer the poll. You'll see it shortly come up on the screen. And we'll go over the feedback in a little bit as the program progresses. So, Stefan, go ahead and let's get started. Give us a high-level overview of what Intune is and what it can do for our customers, please.
Sure. Thank you, Ken, for that introduction. Hey, everyone. Microsoft Intune is Microsoft's endpoint management platform, but it also ties into all of the different components in the M365 suite. While it manages just your endpoints, it can provide insights into what your users are using as far as software, what SaaS apps they're using. It also ties into security, ensuring that your devices are compliant and secure, leveraging that zero trust platform all around your organization. So it's a great tool. Microsoft is making a lot of investments and adjustments to the Microsoft Intune platform. So it's a great product to manage your endpoints and increase your security for your organization.
Excellent. And most likely it's something you probably own if you own M365 or EMS, right? So it's already included in your licensing, and that's what most of the folks that we see typically have these days. So if you have M365 licensing, M365 E3, E5, or EMS, or you can even buy it separately. We'll talk more about that later. All right. You ready to move on to hybrid solutions, Stefan?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Let's do it.
Okay. So for hybrid solutions, and I'm just going to do an overall summary of from a project point of view, from what I see, from what the other engineers at Planet sees. Hybrid solutions, that typically entails one of two things. The first one is setting up what's called Entra Connect. It's a lightweight client that you would install on an on-prem server that syncs all of your identities, your user objects, your group objects, computer objects up to the cloud. And that allows you to synchronize all of your on-prem to your cloud. So you start to establish your hybrid identities that way. In the terms or in the context of an endpoint migration, this is typically done somewhere in the middle or last, because you have to move your identities and your data and everything that's needed for the end user to conduct their business over first. And this is one of the things that this is probably one of the most organizations do, is they use Entra Connect or some sort of Cloud Connect is the other one, but they use that client to sync all of their on-prem identities and objects up to the cloud. The other thing that companies do is that they use something called an RMM tool, remote management tools such as NinjaOne, HCL's Big Fix or Workspace ONE. And in this approach, you're not necessarily hybrid joining your devices to Entra and on-prem, or sorry, not on-prem, but you're not hybrid joining your devices to Entra ID. You're maintaining your on-prem connectivity, but you have something like NinjaOne. So that is essentially what it's somewhat of a competitor to Intune, but it's a utility used to remotely connect to your devices, manage it. You can install applications, run scripts remotely, and so on. So that is the second approach to the hybrid solution. But yeah, those are the two ways. The most common thing that you see in like the Microsoft-centric approach is a concept called co-management. Microsoft, their tool SCCM or configuration manager or endpoint manager, whatever term you use, because it's changed so many times. They've crafted this co-management concept that allows you to gradually move your workloads, your endpoint workloads, over to Intune, as fast as you want, as slow as you want. You can stay in this hybrid mode permanently if you want, but there are two great ways you can upload your machines to Microsoft Intune. One of them is tenant attach, one of them is co-management. Co-management typically entails the hybrid joining of devices. So you're joined on-prem and to the cloud. And then you're going to decide where the workloads are going to be. Do you want to keep your compliance policies and configuration manager, or do you want to move them over to Microsoft Intune and leverage something like conditional access or Windows updates? That's a huge one. Is your organization mature enough? Does your organization have the appetite to move a business process like that? Are you okay with just less control of updates in your organization, or do you need granular control? For universities or engineering, this can be a big issue because you have typically specialized hardware that requires a very specific driver. And Microsoft Intune, not until recently was not mature enough to be able to delay that upgrade or to delay that that driver update. So, that's something that you would need to take into consideration. I remember I had one client that had a very specific mouse that they needed to use when drafting their AutoCAD drafts. And if you updated it, then the whole program stopped working, and then you lost like tens of thousands of dollars a day. And, so you just need to make sure that you consider things of that nature when you're planning your hybrid solutions.
So it's a great way to dip your toe into it without going all in, I guess, yeah?
Yeah, for sure. So, and expanding on co-management, and like I said, you can choose to gradually move over, or you can kind of do it like an all-at-once approach. But for most organizations, they're going to start, their pilot of Intune. So for those of you who use SCCM, you have a collection of devices that you feel are ready to begin the pilot. So you're going to move all of your workloads to Pilot Intune, you'll drop all of the workstations into that Pilot connection, and then the client will adjust after that. But again, it really just comes down to where you are in your migration. If you have the necessary resources to, for example, client apps, are all of your software titles repackaged and prepared for Intune? Because Intune can't do executables, from the get-go. You have to repackage them. So have you taken that into consideration? Is that in your project plan? So there are a lot of different moving pieces that you need to consider when you're moving to Microsoft Intune as it relates to co-management. But it allows you to move as fast as you want, as slow as you want. And I've also seen some people just kind of use it in an auxiliary way where they're fully Intune, but they want to continue using SCCM for reporting. If you're primarily on campus, you can use the remote control feature. The custom hardware inventory is really nice. And I know that's somewhat coming to Microsoft Intune shortly, but for those organizations that need to capture very specific hardware details, that can be a big thing that you need to keep. So you can use it really however you want.
Excellent. Any questions so far? I'm sure you guys got to have some questions, I'm sure by now. Otherwise, we're going to go into a demo of Co-Manager, right?
Yep, I have prepared a lab.
Yeah, so let me go ahead and release the presentation and give it back to you for a few minutes here.
Okay, let me just go ahead and connect.
So while we're waiting again, that would be a great time to put questions in the window if you have any questions. We've got Mario standing by.
And I'm just going to share this window because I've got kind of a large monitor. Okay. So I built this lab. Yep, I built this lab and I just named it something. So it's not going to reflect Planet's domain since it's just purely a lab. But I will show you the different components of co-management and how to set it up. Come on.
Oh, we're getting some really good questions in the chat window now. So if Mario doesn't answer them all, we'll certainly get to them when we get to our question and answer period as well.
Okay. So for those of you who are familiar with this, this is this is the SCCM console. For those of you who aren't, this is Microsoft's endpoint management tool that was primarily for on-prem management only. And in recent years, they've built in a lot of Azure features too. So it's not solely for on-prem anymore. And there's such a thing called a cloud management gateway. It's essentially creating an application in Azure that lets you communicate with your devices that have the SCCM client on them. So that can be a piece of the co-management there. But essentially, you'll come in here to cloud attach. They've renamed it, as Microsoft does. But when you go into your cloud attach console and setting up the connection between your on-prem domain and Microsoft Intune, you can configure different components that will synchronize your on-prem devices here, or what would be considered on-prem devices, to Microsoft Intune. So I've synced it to the Azure public cloud. It also supports US Gov and the China 21 cloud. But so this goes back to the hybrid approach. So if I didn't want to do the whole hybrid connect, I could just select this box, which I've done, and I am having devices be uploaded to Microsoft Intune automatically. So anything that's in Configuration Manager is automatically going to get uploaded and added to the Microsoft Intune console, and I'll just show you that in just a second. And I'm going to enable endpoint analytics for devices that are uploaded to Microsoft Intune so I can get some more telemetry there. I'm enforcing RBAC for Cloud Console requests, and I'm going to upload Microsoft Defender for Endpoint data to Microsoft Intune as well. So all of the data that I have in SCCM is going to be uploaded to Intune, and then Microsoft Intune is going to allow me to view all of that information like in the console. So I don't need to be on-prem to view any of this.
That's
And
nice.
then, yeah, this goes back to the type of enrollment that you choose for your hybrid approach. So in my case, I just selected all instead of just doing like a pilot collection. And then if I wasn't ready, then obviously I would select none. But and then the workloads, I've adjusted most of them all to Intune. And I was hoping that it was going to be ready for today. I don't think it is, but I'll show you what it looks like regardless. But so in this instance, I am pretending that my organization is mostly ready for Intune, but the client apps are just not done yet. I've not repackaged them. I've not used the Intune content wrapping tool to convert all of my executables, all of my MSI into what are called Windows 32 applications. And that's the native application format for Microsoft Intune. That gives you the most features. It gives you detection methods. It gives you the ability to supersede required dependencies and all of that different, all of those different options. I've not done that yet, so I'm going to keep the slider on Configuration Manager. So while my machine is going to be uploaded to Microsoft Intune and primarily managed by Intune, all of the client apps are going to be delivered by Configuration Manager. And then the staging, this would just be the device collections if I chose to do something in pilot. But setting up co-management is very easy. All it really requires is either an Intune administrator or a global admin, preferably the global admin, since you have to create those app registrations in Intune. But this is a fantastic way to get your foot forward, your first step towards your hybrid journey if you're using SCCM. And then again, to reiterate, if you're not, then you typically just have some sort of client like Ninja or HCL, something of that nature. And I don't have one set up, but this cloud management gateway, again, it's just an application that allows you to extend the boundary of your management for what are considered on-prem devices over the internet. So if I'm needing to collect data or install applications or updates or whatever, this is what I would use. And this was a godsend during COVID, for those of us who were primarily on-prem and required to be on campus to receive updates and applications. And then suddenly we're all at home and nothing is connected and, no patches are being sent out or applications that we needed aren't being installed. This is something that saved a lot of companies, standing this up and then having all of your applications be in the cloud, especially for organizations that were not yet in Intune. This was huge. But that is co-management in a nutshell. It's relatively simple to set up, and then you just choose what workloads you want to use and what workloads you're ready to switch over. And then again, it just gives you that granular control to migrate.
Excellent. Before we get out of the demo, if there's any questions about co-management, feel free to come off mute. I know Joseph DeWalt, I think you had your hand up a few minutes ago. We'll absolutely take your question now. If you want to come off mute, we're happy to answer it. Otherwise, you can put it in the chat window. But if there's any questions about co-management right now, if you want to come off mute, we can certainly talk about them.
Well, that was actually my point. Our organization doesn't allow us to use chat in Microsoft Teams.
Oh, okay.
So have no way of putting anything in the chat window.
Talk it out then.
and well, actually, no, it was just more a matter of if it's possible after the end, if people have been doing chats and they've got answers and whatnot to those chat questions, I'd like to get copies of that if that's possible.
Casey, I think you'll probably have to field that one, right? Be a list of the chat questions and the answers that have come up. You'll get access to the recording definitely afterwards. I know Casey will send that out. So I don't think it'll have the chat questions though.
It will not. Sorry, I couldn't get off mute. It will not have the chat questions in the recording, but we can see what we can do about including that.
I've got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Aaron Garrison asked, how do you repackage applications for Intune?
I will show you. Let me stop
You-
sharing this.
Do you want to
And
save that for later on, or is this a good time to talk about it, Stefan?
it'll take me just a
Okay.
moment.
Fantastic.
And I'll just show you the actual documentation because invoking the tool would cause a UAC prompt and mess me up. But this is what you would be using. It's called the Win32 app content, or sorry, the Win32 content prep tool. It is just a utility that you would download from Microsoft's GitHub. And you would actually, I will show you conceptually what it looks like real quick. And I apologize if this screen is too large. But so here on my desktop, I have these different applications, right? So I was packaging engineering applications lately, and for your content for your applications, whatever you want to put in here can be wrapped up into a singular application. So when I invoke the tool, I'm going to specify that I want to upload this, or I want to make this my Windows 32 application. I'm going to define an installer. And I'm going to define a file that is my primary installer. So I'm going to choose this because the script actually just didn't work. And then the command line will actually be defined in the Intune console later. But that's essentially how you repackage the application. It's very straightforward. It's not complicated. It's, when you do your actual app packaging, you still need to know what command line you want to use. And some of that takes time to figure out, as you know, but for the actual rewrapping of it, it's just I want this is my installer, go ahead and do it. And then it wraps it up into a Win32 app. The only unfortunate thing, the only difference between Microsoft Intune's applications and SCCM and other management utilities is that you can't quickly edit something. So, if I'm using SCCM and I forgot a file, I can just drop it in and update the distribution content. But with Microsoft Intune, if you miss something, you have to repackage the whole thing, and that can just take so much longer. It's a pain.
Got it. Thank you. Ken, if time for one more, or should we continue on with the presentation?
If it's about co-management, while we got this up, we should probably talk about it. If not, we can move on.
Possibly. It's about a question from Donald Hoisey for IT structures where there's many distributed nodes and policies. What is a recommended practice for getting users onboarded without stepping on other else's devices or policies? That seemed like a complex question.
Yeah, I mean, if you're using SCCM, then the collection thing is going to be what you want to do, isolating what devices can and cannot be in those pilot collections. And some organizations, honestly, like the term pilot can be kind of misleading because it can be a subset. Like that's what Microsoft had intended, but I've seen some organizations just pilot their whole workstation, all of their workstations, and with just the exceptions of a few. They kind of accepted a few, but then piloted all of their machines. So that would be what you would want to do. And then for Intune, there's such granular control over what you can deploy and where, because the RBAC, and there are things called scopes and filters that you can use. Even if your devices are in Intune, that doesn't mean that they're, that they've got something applying to them necessarily. So there are things you can do to isolate what you need to.
Okay.
Excellent. All right, let's move on to legacy GPOs and how we can get them into Intune. Go ahead, Stefan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this one is a huge component for many organizations. This can take, a few weeks. I've seen it be as long as 6 months. And this screenshot is a very kind, neat, and orderly, group policy object array. This is something I stood up for the demo. Any mature environment, especially if you've got thousands of machines, is going to have dozens, if not hundreds, of group policy objects.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, most of them, I wouldn't say most of them, many of them are, just kind of lost to time. One was created to satisfy a security, CVE concern and has been since patched, but nobody knew that it had been patched. So it just kind of stayed there. Or something super specific that somebody implemented and who is no longer at the company. So it takes a few engineers to just sit down and evaluate what is in those group policies, to actually read them, as tedious as that is, and then come to the table with, your management, your leadership, and determine what needs to be moved and how. But this one is very time consuming. But thankfully, Microsoft gave us what's called group policy analytics, which allows you to just export those group policies that you have on-prem, and then it will just evaluate what it can support in Microsoft Intune. So in that screenshot, I've exported two. I've exported something for BitLocker that actually didn't have anything in there, and then I exported the Windows 11 security baseline that Microsoft provides in their security toolkit. And as you can see, the MDM support only reports 90% compatibility with the MDM support, and that missing 10% is going to be on-prem user settings that you're not using in your new environment, or you typically wouldn't use. So you're not going to define a password age or password lockout typically with Entra ID. You're going to be using, MFA or passwordless, something like that. So it gives you a pretty high level view of what is compatible and what's not. And then as you dive into this, you can just create Microsoft Intune policies straight from your group policy objects, and that's the demo that we have next. But yeah, this one can be a pain, but it's just, it's simple but hard.
So best practice is to clean up your GPOs before moving to Intune?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I personally like the approach of just moving everything over and then adding things back slowly. But yeah, you have to evaluate it before you move over, because once you sever that connectivity on-prem, if you do, you need to have something applying the policies, and group policy won't be that tool anymore.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and get started with your demo then.
Okay.
I'll stop sharing.
All right, so back to my screen. Okay, so back to the server here. I think I already exported it. If not, I'll just do it real quick. Nope, that's not what I want. I want this. Okay, so we are going to export OneDrive. So this one is a simple one. So I'm going to, what am I going to do? I'm going to come here and back this up. So I'm going to choose what folder I want to back up to, give it a name. It's going to spit out, and you can do this with PowerShell, but I'm just doing this manually. PowerShell is the easier method, but it will spit out, the specific, GUI, and then I'm going to copy it to my local machine. And then I'm going to pull up my Intune console here. So to use group policy analytics, you would go to devices and then group policy analytics. And then you would select import. And then you're going to choose that backup file that we just created. And you would use GP report right here. So it will evaluate what's in it. And it will show you what MDM support is available and what the unknown settings are. And in this instance, there aren't any, because I knew that this one was going to be a good one for a demo. But so these are the settings that I've set for my organization. So automatic bandwidth upload for OneDrive, so you're not killing your network pipes. Silently moving all of your folders, silently signing in with your Windows credentials, and then using OneDrive files on demand. So if you have a robust OneDrive, you're not, downloading or uploading like a couple gigs or a terabyte of data or whatever. So in this instance, now that I have the group policy imported already, I'm going to just go ahead and hit migrate. And I'm going to select everything. It's going to select all of the settings that I had previously. I'm going to give it a name, and I am kind of particular, so I'm going to just do this. ADMX is just the name for the type of configuration profile that Microsoft is going to create. Scope tags, I don't have any. I just have the default one. But for organizations, especially for like state governments, I've seen more and more, as you have more hands in the pot, you will need to create what are called scope tags and RBAC rules. For scope tags, you can create something like, I don't know, we'll just use a university for example. Like, let's just say that, there was a school of engineering and a school of medicine or something like that. Medicine and engineering can manage the Microsoft Intune together, but if you just divide each department by their own scope, you'll only see what's assigned or available to their scope so that there's no overlap. But for here, I just have default, so I'm just going to continue. And I'm going to just go ahead and add all devices because I know it's ready for production and deploy. So it will create the configuration profile, and I have successfully migrated a group policy in less than a minute, really. So if you're in a crunch and you need to move everything over and you're not worried about cleanup, this can be a very useful tool. And I've had projects, I've had entities, organizations that have had to use this. So it's a great way to, move things quickly, or evaluate what you have and just help you make a plan.
We had a question that came in about, does group policy analytics work with AppLocker, or do you recommend WDAC?
AppLocker isn't great for Microsoft Intune because there's no real central way to manage it. You would have to use a custom policy. WDAC isn't that, it's complex. My answer is to use Microsoft's App Control for Business. That's my actual answer.
Okay.
And I can show that a little bit later. But essentially, what you have using that, it's a combination of AppLocker and WDAC, but you essentially deploy a managed installer to your Microsoft Intune machines. It will natively trust what comes from the Microsoft Store if you so choose, and then anything that comes from Microsoft Intune. So it automatically accepts those applications into your policy, so you don't have to constantly update WDAC with like a new XML. You don't have to worry about anything like that, but it keeps out all of that, all of the applications that the end user may try to download. So if they try to download Firefox, like that would be blocked. But if they got Chrome from Intune, that would be allowed. But that's what I would use.
All right. We're going to move on to our second poll question. We're just kind of curious what you're using to image your machine. So if you could just quickly answer this poll question, we're just kind of curious, and then we'll move on. So Casey, if you could launch that poll, that'd be great. Again, all the polls are anonymous, so don't worry about that. All right, Seven, talk to us about Autopilot. This is a great solution that people either are just getting started with or have tried it but had some problems with it. So I'm just kind of curious your thoughts about Autopilot and your experience with it.
Yeah, Autopilot can be great. It simplifies the traditional management of imaging, so you don't have to necessarily upkeep your task sequences or your software or anything like that. It's a configuration of a few windows, and then you have a nice end user experience. And one of the added benefits to this is that your end users don't necessarily have to pick up your devices from help desk anymore. If you so choose, you could just ship it straight to the end user. Or if you're a help desk and somebody needs to replace their device, you could just simply hand them the box and inform them that they can just sign in at their desk. So there's a lot less work, there's a lot less upkeep, and it's a great set of technologies that you can use to streamline your imaging process. The only caveat, and this is my personal opinion as an engineer, but the only caveat is that it's not suitable if you're trying to front load your images with like 20 applications. If you have that many applications, if you are a university that is trying to image a computer lab, Autopilot may not be the best solution for you. It's mostly meant for, end users who are, completing normal type of business, not like a cinema lab or like a robust DevOps engineering image or something like that.
Gotcha.
But yeah, no, it's a great way to streamline everything. And if you go to the next, there you go. Autopilot, one of the benefits again is that you can ship straight to the end user. And for organizations that are trying to migrate to Microsoft Intune, you can upload your existing devices to the autopilot service. You can do that a few ways. You can deploy a script from your endpoint management tool. You could honestly even do it with group policy if you needed to, but you could deploy it using SCCM or something else that you have. It would grab what are called hardware hashes, device IDs, as this diagram shows, and then you can upload it to the autopilot service. So the next time the machine is imaged, it will abide by your autopilot settings. So it will apply a specific name. It will provision the end user to be a standard user or an administrator. It will install the necessary applications and configurations before completing the provisioning process, and install all of the necessary applications that you need. But yeah, you can also deliver it straight to your employee. You don't need to have the help desk hand it out. And then the only thing that you need, the other thing too is if you have new devices or if you've purchased from the same retailer, your OEM retailer, you can request that they upload all of the purchase devices from your past purchase history and your new purchases to your tenant automatically. So if I'm purchasing my machine from Dell, I can have Dell upload those machines to autopilot automatically. So again, I can literally just hand my end users a laptop and say, like, here you go forth. They can sign in and it's going to abide by all of my customizations. And I've not had to lift a finger to image that device. So it's, so much more time spent, or so much more time saved for me and the other endpoint admins.
All right, let's get to a demo again. I'll go ahead and release my desktop.
Okay. And I'll just show you what I did to set up autopilot real quick. So under enrollment here, you have all of your different autopilot options. There are what are called device preparation policies. So for those of you who are operating in the GCC high environment, you know that Windows Autopilot is not fully available. You do have this though, and you do have the enrollment status page. So what you can do is you can configure an application, an app registration in your Entra ID, where it will automatically add any new Intune devices to your collection, and then it will start abiding by that preparation policy. It doesn't give you everything. It doesn't give you all of the customizations. It's close, but it doesn't give you everything. Let me see if I can show you. Yeah, it's close, but it doesn't give you as much as the true autopilot does. But this is where I would come to view my devices. I have a singular device. I just have one virtual machine for the purposes of today, but you would be able to see the make, the model, any group tag that are associated with it. And then if you wanted to, you could assign a user. The group tag would be something like, I don't know, like Dell's September shipment or whatever. But this is an optional field, but that's where your devices would be. And then this is where you would come and configure your deployment profile. And this is where you're going to choose the actual customizations for autopilot. So I don't want software licensing terms to show. So I'm going to hide the privacy settings. I'm going to not allow the account options because I want them to be either an administrative or a standard user. The pre-provisioning deployment, this is if you want to kind of speed up the process. This is more used for white glove deployment. So if you were handing your laptop to an executive, like your CEO or CIO or something like that, you could pre-provision the deployment. You could add more applications, make sure that the machine is updated and has everything necessary. So when they go ahead and sign in, it's as close to the finished product as you can possibly get it. You can choose the region, keyboard, device naming template. So for this purpose, I'm just saying I want this prefix, and then I want you to just generate 4 random characters. Most people just use the serial here. Less and less organizations are actually using a specific naming template. Like I've had a few where they were so specific, down to the building number. So, but you can create as many of these as you need to. So if you are one of those organizations that wants to vary your experiences, or if you want to do like a different naming pattern, you can create a bunch of these and assign it to whatever, whomever you need to, different user groups and so on. But yeah, I mean, oh, sorry, and the last piece, sorry, I'm mindlessly clicking here. The last piece of this autopilot is this. It's called the enrollment status page. And this is just a nice way of wrapping the whole experience for the end user. So in my deployment, I'm going to show, or I'm not going to show the app and profile configuration process. I can create a custom message. So if it fails, you can be a little bit more specific and say if something has failed, please contact the help desk at this phone number and at this email address or whatever. And then I can define whether or not I want Windows updates to install during the process. And then this one is probably the most used feature here. Block device until all apps and all profiles are installed. So for entities that have migrated over to Microsoft Intune and need to ensure that all of your core software has been installed, especially your security software, you would select yes, and then you would select either all or selected. If you select all, anything that's deployed to all devices or all users or anything that it's subject to your user being targeted is going to try and install before the machine lets you in, which is why I say if you're trying to use 20 to 25 applications, this thing is going to take legitimately 4 hours if it succeeds at all. So this is what I'm talking about. And then if you want to use selected, you could select a few. So if you're using if you have like a hybrid joined autopilot, you want to make sure that you have like AnyConnect before login installed so that you can connect back on-prem, or your antivirus and firewall or so on.
Mario's got his hand up.
Yep.
Go ahead,
A
Mario.
couple of quick questions. First off, the question regarding the deck for the presentation. Will there be one available?
Yeah, it'll go out with the follow-up email.
Excellent. I answered this question, Stefan, but I said I would ping you on it. Can autopilot be used in a hybrid environment with a robust on-prem OU structure? I said yes, but there's a lot of considerations which you're better qualified to speak on.
You can, yeah, so you can definitely do the hybrid piece, and then you would do this. Domain join, I think that's it. Yeah, there you go. So you would give it a prefix, you would give it a domain name, and then you would choose the organizational unit that you're trying to drop the machine into. And this happens at the time of provisioning. So as long as you've got your targeting down correctly, and what I mean by that is your assignments, as long as you assign it to the appropriate user group or device group, that will work. You just need to have a bunch of these, I guess, if you have a complex OU structure, but you can certainly use it. You can certainly use autopilot in a hybrid capacity with a complex OU structure.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right. Well, we're getting short on time. I want to make sure we have some more time to wrap up and do questions. So bring us home, Stefan. Why should you move?
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, Microsoft Intune, this is such a great sophisticated tool that's so cloud forward. So and today, and the whole modern work approach where people are working, from all manner of places, like this is a great tool to keep your environment secure. It has so many great pieces that interconnect with other security tools to keep your organization safe. It simplifies the endpoint management solution and the management of devices. Microsoft is going to continue making investments in Microsoft 365 specifically for endpoint management. Microsoft Intune, it will continue supporting features like SCCM or products like SCCM, but all of the major advancements are going to be made in Microsoft Intune. So if you want the latest and greatest and the most powerful tools, Microsoft Intune is going to be the suite for you. And then, apart from that, Microsoft Intune and Defender for Endpoint, they are industry recognized leaders. Defender for Endpoint, is a Gartner, Magic Quadrant leader. Microsoft Intune has also been recognized as some of the best endpoint management products that you can get as well. And for many of us, we already have, Business Premium or E3s or E5. So you probably already have something that gives you Microsoft Intune. So, why not use it? It's such a great
That
product.
was my favorite answer. That was my favorite answer and part of the You Already Own It program, right? If you own M365 or EMS or Enterprise Mobility Suite, right, you definitely got Intune already, or you can buy it separately, right? But most people,
Absolutely.
if they're into security, they're probably got one of those SKUs already built into their system. All right, so let's look at the poll results real quick. It looks like to me, like no shocker here, as far as are you using Intune? The majority of users, 51%, said hybrid. Yes, that makes sense to us. There is about 6 users who said no, they still haven't started using Intune yet. So that was interesting. And those are the two big results. Yeah, and we had a couple that were fully cloud, so that was kind of interesting, which is great that you can get there as fully cloud. On the second poll, how do you image your machines? Overwhelmingly, the answer was 80%. The first answer, which was SCCM, MDT, Case, or Clonezilla, etc. So 80% of folks are doing that. We had 11% using autopilot and 7% using other. All right. So I just want to, let's get to the questions right now. We had some questions that came in advance, so I want to make sure we give some time for those. Onboarding iPads, best methods. Stefan, if you have some thoughts about that. And
Sure. So for onboarding iPads or Apple devices, for BYOD, the web enrollment method is nice, and it's cleaner than the alternative, which is to download the company portal app and let your end users do that. For corporate devices, if they're, I'm assuming they're going to be in Apple Business Manager, so automatic deployment enrollment, that would work best for corporate devices. You can use Apple Configurator. It's such a manual process, and I feel like it only works half the time. So yeah, for BYOD, web enrollment, for corporate device, automatic deployment enrollment.
Excellent. Best practices for remote supported PCs in the organization?
If you're mostly on campus, you could probably get away with SCCM's remote capabilities. Microsoft does have the remote tool available as an independent add-on, or if you've purchased the Intune suite. I do kind of feel bad about saying this since we're a Microsoft partner, but I see most entities using some sort of third-party product, such as Ninja or Beyond Trust's remote control.
Then did you mention the Intune suite now has that capability as well?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. There was a question about interested in more information about hybrid environments. We have no plan on moving away at this time, but how could we utilize Intune and SCCM together? I think you answered that with co-management, right?
Yeah, and it really depends on like what you want to do for your organization, how better, how you want to make it more efficient, what workloads you want to shift over. If you don't want to move, that's fine. Nobody's forcing you unless you have to be CMMC compliant or something like that. Then it makes more sense to move to Microsoft Intune. But there's no real best method, I guess, for hybrid. Move what you can to Intune. Having security policies like BitLocker keys, lapse, stuff like that, that all makes sense to me to be in the cloud and not necessarily storing it on-prem. And then just keep what you need to on-prem, I guess, is my advice.
Excellent. This was a great question because up until recently, this wasn't even available. But the question was, what is the cost for Intune plan that enables patch management features?
Yeah, sure. So this is relatively new, I'd say within the last year or so. But Microsoft has started offering pre-packaged third-party applications, and it has, I think, around 200 applications. And when I say third-party, I'm talking about like Google Chrome, Firefox, FileZilla, Zscaler, some AutoCAD applications, all of that. But it's a service where you can just automatically download and push them, and the applications will update themselves. It is available as an independent add-on. You do need an E3 or E5 to purchase it, but it's $2 per user per month, or it could be part of the Intune suite, which is $10 per user per month.
Right. Excellent. Excellent. And then best practices for hybrid environments. We kind of talked about some of those already, but.
Yeah. I mean, move what you can to the cloud, keep what you need to on-prem. Try to leverage as much of the Microsoft 365 platform as you can, because those security tools are going to be what keep you safe. And there's so many more analytics in the cloud than there are on-prem.
Yeah. Try out co-management, dip your toe in it, see what it's like, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Project timelines. How long does it take to move to the cloud only from a hybrid environment, basically?
It
It's a
can,
tough question to answer.
it can depend. I'll just walk you through our process. Typically at Planet, what we do is we do discovery for a few weeks. We try to see what you have in your environment. We generate a game plan, provide you with a technical design doc, and see if you like it. And then from there, we'll go ahead and build out the new tenant and then migrate over, either on a weekend or in waves. But again, like the data and the identities need to be there first. You can't migrate endpoints,
Right.
First. So there's a lot of things that you need to consider before you even touch endpoint. I mean, for most of the projects that I'm involved with, I go last. I wait for our collaboration teams to move everything over so that I can do my part. But yeah, anywhere from like 6 weeks. I think the longest I've ever been on one is 18 months. But that was for a huge aerospace company. So we were doing like 5,000. Yeah, we were doing like 5,000 machines like each week. So.
Okay, excellent. So I think that's it. Unless Mario, any questions you want to bring up from the chat window before we kind of wrap things up here?
There's one last question that came in. I answered the other ones to the best of my abilities. From Alex Jelenian. Sorry if I butchered that. It says, how would you convert hybrid devices to full cloud only? Would it be a full redeployment of devices, or are there configurations that can just be pushed to remove devices off of the domain?
It depends on how you originally provisioned them. So for example, if I started with an on-prem username, that's what I'm going to be using to sign into my device. So in that instance, it would be better for me to reimage the device, because if I try to kick myself off, what it's going to do is it's going to strip that user profile, and then I'm just going to be kind of left with a dead machine. But if I started at the cloud and then synced back down, I'm going to be using a cloud account first. And in that regard, I can just do a dsreg command, or I can sever the on-prem connectivity that way. So it really just depends on where you started. You don't need to reimage. That is my recommendation, just because it goes so much better. I've had some projects where they've scripted out that disjoin, and then they ultimately sysprepped machines to just get the domain where they wanted it to be.
Okay. Well, let's wrap things up here. Please stay on for just a couple more seconds, because there's some great workshops that are free of charge that I want to bring up here to make sure you're aware of around the endpoints. So if you have not onboarded to the YouAlreadyOwnIt program, which this webinar is part of that program, I would highly recommend you do. I'm going to put the link in the chat window to get onboarded. If you onboarded to the program years ago, we've added a lot of workshops to this program, so you may not be aware of all the things that are available. You can see on the right side of the screen here. So please get onboarded if you haven't been onboarded. It just means that you listen to 15 minutes of all the workshops and all the free stuff that's available to you. Again, this is all no selling, no cost, right? This is all part of us investing in this relationship moving forward, making sure that you're getting all the benefits out of your Microsoft licensing, which is a big part of the YouAlreadyOwnIt program. We've got 2 great workshops, Endpoint Management Security, MDE, and Intune. I want to highlight this one. This is the first of 2. This workshop aims to showcase the features and capabilities of Microsoft Defender for Endpoint and Intune, emphasizing their importance in managing the complete device lifecycle, ensuring robust protection for users, data, and devices regardless of their location. The second one is also really great. This workshop aims to provide attendees with a comprehensive understanding of the capabilities of Microsoft XDR and Sentinel, and how these products work together to protect against various threats. We're going to talk about Defender for Endpoint, Defender for 365, Defender for Identity, and Microsoft Sentinel, how they all work together and help you with XDR capabilities. Again, might be something you already own, and you definitely should be taking advantage of it. Coming up next month, October 23rd, always the 4th Thursday at 1 o'clock, we got our next session. We haven't firmed up the actual topic yet, but make sure you check out the next newsletter that'll be going out next month. As always, if you have a topic that you want to hear about, please reach out to us or put it in the chat window. We'd love to hear about it. We'd also, I mentioned, we always give out some helpful links. These are some great links to get started on the topics that we talked about today. I know some of you had some questions about Intune plans and pricing and possibly the new Intune suite and the pricing and how that's packaged from a pricing standpoint and a packaging standpoint. Definitely check out those last two links on this slide. But these links are great to get started on the topics that we discussed today. Finally, we'd love to know how we did. So if you could, I think, Casey, you're going to put this next up in the chat window, next poll. Let us know how well we did. If this was helpful, we'd really appreciate it. And as always, we hope this session has provided you with the knowledge and tools to make informed decisions about your endpoint management strategy. Microsoft Intune is one of the best unified endpoint management solutions and one of Gartner's Magic Quadrant leaders in endpoint security. By making this move, organizations reduce dependency on legacy infrastructure, simplifying the device management and strengthening security. Align with Microsoft's investment strategy, ensuring access to the latest features and updates, and embrace the modern work model, enabling improved productivity from a remote or hybrid workforce while maintaining necessary security. We encourage you to reach out to your cloud strategist and the You Already Own It program for more information, or if you have any questions, again, feel free to ask questions to the program by sending an email to that link that we mentioned earlier for further guidance and support. And that's a wrap. I want to thank you all for joining us today. Especially, I want to thank Stefan for all the great information and for Mario for managing the chat window, which there was no shortage of chat questions. So we thank you. We love when this is interactive and we have questions. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We've got about 2 more minutes. So if anybody wants to come off mute and ask a question, we'd certainly be happy to entertain it. Feel free to come off mute. All right. I don't see anybody coming off mute, so I guess that's a wrap. We want to thank you again, and we'll see you all next month.